So we have been going through the Lama Tsongkhapa middle Lam-Rim, and within that we have finished the first scope, initial or small scope and middle scope, and we're in the chapter on the great scope, and within that and more detail on the last two perfections, and within that we are on the detail of karma abiding or shamatha, meditative concentrations, and within that we completed about creating the right kind of environment to develop the karma abiding or shamatha, and then identifying the object of the meditations, different objects, and then after that, then in terms of the practice, we have been following where Lama Tsongkhapa explains by how to cultivate or develop the shamatha by overcoming the 5 faults, by applying the 8 factors or antidotes. So within that, we have kind of finished identify all of those 5 faults, and then applying the 8 antidotes, and so the 5 faults, I think maybe it might come later too, but we have finished about the laziness and how to overcome that, and then forgetting the objects and or instructions and overcoming that, then laziness, laxity and excitement, and that was where we have been kind of talking about, third kind of the faults. And within the laxity, we have gone through laxity and excitement. Last week we discussed about the growth level of laxity and excitement, and subtle level of laxity and excitement, and more subtle level of laxity and excitement, and identifying them, and on the basis of identifying them, then by applying the mindfulness, vigilance or introspections, then how to overcome those different level of laxity and excitements. I think so. I think, yeah, I think that was where we are kind of up to. I think in terms of the page, I think we're at page number 203, and I think that is at the very bottom, where it is saying applying antidote to not endeavoring to abandon the laxity and excitement, even though they have been identified. So yes. So that is in relation to the fourth fault, which is not applying the antidotes when you need to apply, So with a strong practice of, so even though you have developed a strong practice of mindfulness and vigilance, and through that strong practice of mindfulness and vigilance, now you are starting to identify and recognize whenever any excitement or laxity arises. Not only gross level, but you are able to recognize and identify even the subtle level of laxity, and whenever any of the obstacle, the laxity or excitement arises. So you are able to recognize that, identify them the moment it arises, And sometimes, because as our mindfulness and vigilant power improve through practice, as mentioned before, you will be able to identify them even before they arises, even when they are kind of condition are coming together to arise of that. So it is not enough just to identify them. So once you identify what you need, is then you have to apply the antidotes. It's like you see enemy coming, but if you don't try to kind of stop them from coming, then that would be a problem. So therefore, now with a strong mindfulness vigilance, you are able to identify and you see the enemy. And the moment you see it, then you have to take every actions to overcome the enemy. And that means applying the antidotes. And not applying the antidote is the fault here. And so that is, And so if you don't apply the antidote, then of course, even you recognize it, you will not be able to overcome it. And sometimes we see ourselves, sometimes we see anger arising. We are able to identify it, recognize it, but sometimes we are unable, we don't apply the antidote, or we are unable to apply it, and then anger takes over us, So it is not that we have not recognized it. Sometimes even we recognize it, we don't apply the antidotes. And so not applying the antidote is the fault. And applying the antidotes is the solutions. And so that is, then it talk about, how to apply the actual manner of applications, applying the antidotes. And so then, as you can see, within that, there is two sub kind of outlines. And then from the compendium of knowledge, then there is a quotations, explanation what the intentions is. So here Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, in order to apply the antidotes, first you need to have the intention to apply it, the intention, the motivation to apply it. Once you have that intention, then that will lead you to, once you have the intention to apply, then you will actually apply it. If you don't have an intention, then you will not apply it. And so then intention is one of the mental factors among 51 mental factors, and especially with all the mental factors, there are 5 omnipresent mental factors, and intention one of those omnipresent mental factors. And as it says, it is, and it is the mental factors that direct our mind towards certain direction or certain objects, whether it's a virtuous object, non-virtuous, or neutral object, but it is, so it is explained, sometimes example, as it says, Lama Tsongkhapa says, it's like the magnet that pulls the metals, and so these intentions kind of direct our minds, all other mind, towards that objects. So intention is like the magnets, that directs our primary mind and all other omnipresent mental factors towards that object. That is the functioning of that mind, So it is the intention like the magnet that kind of pulls the irons of our primary mental factor, primary mind and other mental factors towards that object. So that is, so here in these cases, the intentions is the intention that motivates you to apply the antidote and to abandon by applying the antidote, then to overcome the enemy of laxity and excitement whenever they arises, So we need to have that intentions. Then once you have that intention to apply that, and then when they do arise, how to apply them, how to stop the laxity and excitements. And here it is, it starts with, again, how to stop the laxity first. So again here, why we have laxity is because, our mind is kind of withdrawn inside when we have that kind of laxity, and kind of down. Our mind is a little bit down. When we have laxity, your mind is a little bit kind of drawn inside, and there is a certain level of that, your mind is down, and so when your mind is down, then you don't have the intensity. And so, of course, if it's a gross laxity, you might not have clarity of the objects, and the subject is the mind itself. But in subtle level, even there is a clarity, you don't have the intensity of holding the object with the intensity, with your mind, with that intensity mind. Or in most subtle, even you have intensity, there is danger of losing that intensity, cause and condition coming to lose that. So in order to have faultless concentration, you need to have clarity and intensity. And so therefore our intensity, holding the object clearly and with intensity, is lost to a certain degree when our mind is withdrawn, when our mind is kind of down. And so that is what the laxity does. And so therefore what we need to overcome that, we need to uplift our mind, because your mind is low. When you have laxity, your mind is becoming a little bit kind of low. And so, and no kind of intensity. And so in order to have that kind of intensity, you need to uplift your mind. In order to uplift your mind, we should kind of contemplate on something that make your mind joyful. When your mind is joyful, by reflecting on certain object that bring you joyful, that joyfulness uplift your minds. When your mind is uplifted, then your mind that is being kind of down will be kind of uplifted. And so therefore, that is, and so that is where it says, then here it says, so in order to that, we should kind of direct our minds towards the cause that drive our mind more, instead of drawing, is because laxity withdrawn inside, so we have the outward, direct towards outward more, something. And so here is saying something like joyful phenomena that can leave you joyful phenomena, and so also it says here, that when your mind is down, your mind becomes a little bit kind of more dull, darkness when you have laxity, And so sometimes focusing on the light can help you to uplift that darkness, that dullness. And so therefore, whether you kind of focus on the sunlight or the light in your home, or if you are doing a meditation on the Buddha's image, you can brightening up the light of the Buddha's image, that helps, It's like some light you push first time, and then second time it become more bright, third time more brighter and brighter. Similarly, you can imagine that Buddha's image becoming more bright and brighter and brighter. And that when you focus on that brightness, then it helps us mind to be more awake and more awake, less dull, less sleepy. And so that is one way. Another way, if you are using here it says expand. What it means is, if you are focusing on the Buddha's image, then you can, before you are just focusing on the general image, and you expand that by going details, going details to the Buddha's image. So when you go in the details of the Buddha's image, then your mind get more expanded. And then again, that help your mind to be more awake and more alert. And so that is another way of doing it. And if someone is focusing on, like let's say breath, for example, the way to do is, before you are just focusing on whether the breath itself or the sensation of the breath on your nostril, as you inhale and exhale, there is a sensation on the very tip of your nostril. So someone just focus on that. So because your mind is becoming a little bit kind of dull and kind of low because of the laxity, then you try to expand it to overcome. So maybe you can focus on you take a deep breath and being aware, I'm taking a deep breath, as you breathe out deeply, focusing. So again, your mind become more active, your mind started become more expanding, more active. And that again make your mind more awake, more refreshed, more alert. And so that is the how to expand it, So if it's a very subtle laxity, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, you don't have to change your object of meditations. Okay, what do? You just try to put more effort to have that more intensity and hold the object more tightly. Okay, because you are not holding the object tightly with that intensity, you are starting to lose that tightness, that intensity. So then there is a danger of the most subtle laxity. So in order to overcome it, you just put a little bit more effort and hold the object a little bit more tight with a little bit more intensity. And then that can help to deal with that more subtle laxity. But if it doesn't help, and it started from laxity, from subtle to become more gross. When it becomes more gross, even after trying to hold with a tight and intensity, then you have to do that expanding your mind we just described, making the whether you're in the image, whether making more brighter and brighter, or going more details, expanding by that. In terms of the breath, then focusing on the long breath, short breath, so you work with your breath, but before you just focus, but now you do kind of deep breath in and out and watching that, and then long breath, short breath, and just focusing on that again, just to activate your mind more. you know, and so that way of so here it says, because your mind is low and down, so we shouldn't be meditating on something which is disenchanting, you know, because that can make even more your mind even more low. So what we should do is meditate on something which is uplifting, not something discharging, but something uplifting when you are dealing with the laxity, because laxity is the mind that make your mind kind of down and low, something you need. So if you meditate on something disenchanting, then so you instead, so it could make worse, and therefore you need to focus on something with kind of uplifting, joyful objects, and that meditation can be any meditation that help you to be enthusiasm, bring enthusiasm and joyfulness. That, and when there is more enthusiasm, when there is more joyfulness, when there is more uplifting, then it can help to reduce and overcome the laxity. And so that is, as you can see, you know, in the combination of the perfection, when there is singing, uplift your mind through the power of effort at a special insight. But of course, you also, not only special insight, you apply same method, whether you are meditating on special insight or shamatha, same thing, you know. When your mind is sinking, when your mind is under the laxity, then you need to uplift. So here Lam Tsongkhapa says, you know, our mind is under the laxity because the mode of apprehending its object has gone down, you know, because you are not holding the object tightly and with the intensity. And it is sinking because it's withdrawn inward too much, you know. So then what we need to, we have to do the opposite, to direct outwards, to direct our mind outwards, you know. And so therefore is encountered by enthusiasm on uplifting mode of apprehension, expanding the object. And I already explained what the expanding the object means, you know. Kind of whether you want to go details, you know, or in terms of the Buddha's image, going into detail and expanding your mind in that way. And meditation on spacious objects, you know. The more spacious object, your mind become more open and more spacious and less withdrawn inward, you know, and that helps to overcome that. When things uplift also by seeing value of joyous effort. So by seeing the value of joyous effort, then we try to develop joyous effort and enthusiasm. And with that kind of enthusiasm, then it helps. So here then Lama Tsongkhapa says, you know, the most important antidote for stopping laxities is this, you know, because your mind is laxity, your mind is down, you need something uplifting. And then something to uplift, then here Lama Tsongkhapa saying, you know, meditation on, you know, by reflecting on the advantage of the three jewels, you know, contemplating on qualities, incredible qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and cultivating inspirations. You know, the more you contemplate, the more you understand, the more you feel connected with that, the more inspirations you have. The most inspiration you have, the more your mind is uplifting. You know, like everything else, in everything in our life, if you have the inspirations, then your mind is more uplifted. If you lose your inspiration, your mind is not uplifting. And so here, what we need is something uplifting of your mind. And so therefore, so in these cases, when laxity has become a growth, okay? It is very subtle, as I already mentioned. You just have to, as Lama Tsongkhapa already explained, you just have to hold the object little bit more tightly, with little bit more intensity. You don't have to change the objects of the meditations. But if you cannot, even by doing that, if your laxity doesn't go away and the laxity still started to increase, then you expand the object, okay? Whether you make it more brighter or go in details. Even by doing that, your laxity doesn't go away. Your laxity become more gross and gross. And then in that cases, then now you change object of meditations so that make your mind some uplifting. So now you, in these cases, you have changed the object of your meditations. Now you are no more focused on the whether it's image, whether it's breath, whatever object of your, because it is so gross, your mind is not inspired. Your mind is not inspired, and so you are loose, and so therefore, then you really change the objects, and you change the objects of meditation, something that can give you inspiration. And so in these cases, one of them is meditating on the advantage and the qualities of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha that can inspire you, uplift your mind, or advantage of the more you contemplate the advantage of bodhicitta, the more inspiration you have. The more inspiration you have, the more uplifting your mind is. The more uplifting your mind is, the less your mind is down. So that is where, as well as excellent quality of precious human, precious freedom that you have. So also meditating on precious human rebirth or Buddha nature, For example, the more, again, when we meditate on precious human rebirth, that can help us to uplift our mind. Also, when we meditate on the Buddha nature, how we all have this Buddha nature, how we all can become enlightened, how our fundamental basic mind is no different with the Buddha's fundamental mind. In terms of the luminosity, the very basic fundamental mind by nature is the luminous and awareness. That part is no different between the Buddha's mind and our mind. Also, the emptiness of our mind and Buddha's mind, there's no difference. So when you reflect on that, then it gives you inspirations, uplifting. Then you think, oh, I can become a Buddha. It's possible to become a Buddha. It's possible to become a, enlightenment. It's possible to overcome all these delusions. And when you have that, then there's more uplifting of your mind. There's more inspiration. And once you have that inspiration, that uplifting of your mind, then you go back to your object. Okay? First of all, we try without losing the object, but sometimes we cannot when it becomes so strong and grows. So in that case, we change the object and meditate on something that inspires us, something which make our mind more joyful, enthusiasm, inspirations, uplifting. Once we have that uplifting, inspiration, joyful mind, then we go back to the same object of our meditations. And then I try to keep that, that is the, so here Lama Tsongkhapa say, when you meditate on all those different topics that we just described in order to uplift your mind, if your meditation is good, effective, if someone has been meditating that for a long time and when they do go in that meditation, it's so uplifting, it's so inspiring, so joyful that it feels like that when you are dull and then you, on the face you put a fresh water, cold water, it totally wakes you up, You feel sleepy, dull, and you can wash your flesh, your face with a very cold water. It just wake you up. So it can be like that. The effect of your practice, meditation, can have that kind of effect. If someone does the meditation well, any of those objects, that remind me, in the monasteries, especially when we were young, and we don't understand much of those pujas, meanings, and all of that, And sometimes you have long schedules, class, and then pujas, and then maybe in between you have been running, you have so much energy and runnings, and then when you are in puja, we fall asleep, we fall asleep. And when Lama Yeshe was still alive, sometimes he will, when he's getting up, he go and take one of the bowl from the water bowl, and he will pour on the head of the monk or who was sleeping, So it really wake you up. And that water is not as cold. It is cold, but not as cold, But it really, you waking up once your water hasn't poured on your head. It really wake you up, Otherwise, sometimes the disciplinary will come and just give you a little bit tap, But then after then, sometime again you fall asleep. And then a disciplinary is coming, your friend next to you, they will give you tap, Just warn you, the disciplinary is coming, wake up. And you wake up, again, you can't stop. It's difficult. But once the cold water is impure, then they don't have to do that so many times. You really wake up. And so here, Lama Tsongkhapa was saying you can have that similar effect of that very cold water being flashed on your face when you are sleepy, and that kind of refresh can be that kind of. And so that this depends on the experience you have gained through your analytic meditation, individual analyze on beneficial topics that he already explained. It depends on individual. If someone has done those practice before, and when they go in those meditation, if it's a much more deeper, profound, then you can have that kind of effect. If it's not profound, deep, then maybe it might not have same level of effect, but definitely it can help you to have certain effect of being a little bit uplifting. And so that is So here Lama Tsongkhapa say, if we, next one, if we apply such antidote, especially like brightening up and visualizing light and so forth, it can it will help to overcome the causes that enforce, laxity and the cause of laxity, the lethargy, sleepiness, and the mental state with aspect of the darkness, and so then we can by overcoming those causes, then we overcome the laxity. And if laxity already been arising, then it can be reversed, and so. And then in Savaka levels, that Asangas, it also, in dealing with as an antidote to laxity, it also talk about break from the activities, taking the mind to correct light and familiarize oneself with them, again, uplifting the mind with 6 recollections. So 3 jewels. So the 6 recollection, the recollection of Buddha, recollection of Dharma, recollection of Sangha, and then recollection of ethic, recollection of generosity or giving, and the recollection of deity. and also other objects for greater clarity, and as well as reciting the Dharma, can point out disadvantage of lethargy, sleepiness, and looking in the various direction, or at the moon and star, washing one's face with water and so forth. So sometimes the lethargy, sometimes the laxity, the lethargy, the sleepiness, dullness can be so bad. Even you do all these different methods that have been described, okay? All the different methods that have been described, all the different antidotes that have been described. Antidote, how to hold more tightly with more intensity, and then expanding it and brightening it, lightening it, and even that does not work, then change, lifting and inspiring, even that doesn't help. Sometimes it is because it is so heavy, the sleepiness, the dullness, the laxity, the lethargy is so sleep. Then in those areas, you stop in meditations. You stop the meditation, get out of your cushions, and then washing your face can help. Sometimes it might not help. Maybe going out and then, if you have a spacious place, looking at the spacious, whether it's ocean, whether it's a open spaces, maybe have some breeze, going out, having some breeze can help, Sometimes even that doesn't help, then, or as it said, gazing at the sun, moon, stars. And sometimes it doesn't help, then you need to kind of take some walk, little bit walk, and then maybe that can help. And once your whatever sleepiness, dullness, lethargy, laxity has kind of, and then when you feel more refreshed, then you come back and sit and do the meditations. So the point, I think, with all this, instructions, advice, is not to push ourselves so much. Do you get it? Sometimes when one method doesn't work, we continue to push and push and push. And then until you lose your mind. You have lung, this wind imbalance, lung. Then you started have because you push and your mind and your body become too uptight. Your mind and body become too uptight. And that make your wind energy imbalance, what we call lung. Then, you cannot sleep well, and you have a, pain, your back pains and all these different things, symptoms. And then it's not good for your practice and your meditation and your mind, as well as your body. So here, that is one thing, we have learned those different methods, describe differently. If one method doesn't work, then you go to the next method. It doesn't work, and that's how we try different. Instead of just, even one doesn't work, you just keep on pushing just with one method, that and that. And so in some cases here, you need to take a break. Instead of pushing yourself, beating out yourself on the cushions, is much better and is much more effective, and is much more better. You take the break and just go and refresh yourself. And then when you are refreshed, then come back and then continue the practice, continue the meditations. And so that is, I think, that is really important advice, instructions. Even though here we are talking about shamatha, but you can apply with that with every practice. Also in your retreat, Sometimes if your practice, with your practice, sometimes even you try different method, different things. If your mind is still too distracted or too dull, then maybe you should make the meditation more session, maybe shorter that day, that session. You can have shorter sessions, you can break it, and then you can start next more refreshed and better, because sometimes our mind are in such state. Some days your mind is very clear. Some days your mind can focus well. Some days your mind is so unclear for whatever reasons. Some days your mind is not so focused, especially for us at the very beginning. And when that happens, of course, we try with different things to focus more, to be more clear. But sometimes it doesn't work, then we have to take a break and not push yourself, I think I might have shared, sometimes I have that experience when we were in monastery, we memorize, and then not to forget the text, we have to repeat that again, reciting that, days, weeks, months, and that, and some of them, you have memorized, so you have recited so many times, even when you're distracted, your mind, you can kind of recite the words, because of that familiarity over the time. And you can recite for, 10, 20 pages, 30 pages, clearly without any disruptions, interruptions. But then there are days, sometimes something, after 5 pages, you are stuck there. And again, you restart, again, you are stuck there. Again, you restart, you're stuck there. And then it started to make your mind more kind of, annoying, frustrated, So your mind become more annoying and frustrated because you are pushing and pushing, and that is not the day. And I learned after some time, oh, today is not the day. So I say, okay, I try 1 time, 2 times, and still there's that kind of blockage, that kind of darkness, and so I just relax. I can recite tomorrow, or maybe later, or tomorrow. I don't have to push myself now. My mind is there is something blockage, and so that happens and so I think that is where we need to really kind of learn to relax, refresh, and rest when it's needed. Important, very important factors, I think. So we don't have that kind of loom, the wind imbalance. When that happens, then it becomes much more difficult. So I think here already, the how to apply special. So here, if our mental laxity is a very, very here slight or very subtle, and not only is subtle, it doesn't come very often, it comes once a while, then you don't have to change your meditation. While keeping your meditation, you just try to intensify or tightening up the way of holding your objects in your meditations. Even by trying that, then if your laxity become more dense and more gross, and not only it become more gross, if it continue to arise more often, again and again, then you stop that particular meditations and apply antidote as appropriately continue. So then you change the meditations, as we say, something that can inspire you, something that can uplift you, such as the Bodhisattva and Three Jewels and Buddha nature and so forth. And once your mind has been uplifted by trying that kind of antidote and refresh, then you go back to the meditation, continue the meditation as soon as laxity has been cleared away. you know. Mm. And then also, if it becomes too dark, if your mind become whether it's taking the aspect of whether it's subtle or dense, or subtle in growth, or slight and dense, or something like darkness, then sometimes the antidote, light, here say, such as butter lamp, fire, sunshine, can be helpful. But I think especially brightening up, for me, sometimes it helps when you are using a Buddha's object. Brightening up the image of the Buddha helps. So you don't have to even change the objects, you just kind of do that extra. So with that, then Lama Tsongkhapa explained how to apply different antidotes according to the different level of laxity and dullness, by applying different kind of antidotes in dealing and overcoming the laxity. And then now is the excitements. So here, excitement is again mental factors. We already actually went in terms of the definition of that. And so it is something that the mind which is kind of wander off or run away or wander off towards the desired objects, such as beautiful form, such as nice sounds, smells, delicious taste, something smooth, tangible objects. So, basically excitement. And that could be, sometimes we are running after our experience, remembering memory of the experience of enjoying those different objects, so that our mind started to follow that kind of memory, and that is kind of get scattered away, distracted, and run away of those objects, and due to the attachment, So in order to overcome that attachment, then we should try to obtain to something. Here is saying something that make your mind disenchanted. Here is a depressing. I don't know, depressing the right word, Basically, your mind becoming less attracted to the object, less attracted, being more disenchanted with the objects, something, and then trying to focus on the cause that help our mind to withdraw inward. Because when you're excitement, your mind is outward, focus too much on outwards. So you need to bring your mind inwards, withdraw inwards, So then Lama Tsongkhapa, then you try to apply whatever antidote that help you to be less attracted to the object and less attached or attracted, and where your mind is more disenchanted with the objects. And once that happens, then again, your attachment subside, become less, then again, you try to bring your mind to the meditation and equipoise and trying to focus on the objects. And so then, how can we do that? So here is pacify excitement by meditating on impermanence, or by meditating on faults of distractions, or excitements. So the more faults or disadvantage or defect of, the more we have a more deeper, stronger understanding of fault of that, the less we do that. And so therefore, meditating on, for example, the suffering of samsara in general, or the meditation on the suffering of three lower realms, or meditation on impermanence, and so on, can help us, our mind, to be withdrawn more inside and becoming less disenchanted with the samsara and samsaric experience and desired objects and so forth. And so when the more disenchanted we become, the more less attracted we become, then the less distracted our mind become, running after those objects. And therefore we would not have that excitement, that kind of get distracted. And so that is where it says, So here's a, again, like as regarding with the laxity, whether it's a subtle or intense, or subtle or gross or very gross, then you apply different antidotes, So here, when intense or long-lasting excitement occurs, sometimes the excitement can become a very gross and intense. Or when we come, or not only is gross and that, sometimes it can last, long, or sometimes it frequently arises again and again very quickly, one after, if that happens, then the instructions, the way to do is, the effective way to do is let go of the meditation for a while. So you let go of that particular objects as we talk, and then you focus on another object, such as meditation on impermanence, meditating on the suffering or nature of the samsara, or essenceless or meaningless of being attached to those objects. And so when you do those meditations, then your mind becomes less attracted and more disenchanted with those objects. When that happens, something disenchantment, meditate on something in disenchantment. Whereas collecting mind inward, placing every time it's scattered is not. And so through that, and then once your mind is less attracted, then again you bring back to the meditations. And then whenever exam not so strong, when it's more subtle, you should collect distracted mind inward and tie it to the objects. So in that cases, you don't have to let go of the objects, when it's subtle, For example, if we are using a Buddha's image, if you are using a Buddha's image, sometimes making that object smaller and smaller can help, to withdraw your mind inward. When you make bigger and bigger, it makes your mind more direct or more outwards, The more bigger and bigger, more detail and detail you do, it makes your mind more excited and more outward. But then when you bring that object more smaller, your mind becomes more focused, smaller that way, then it withdraw inward. Sometimes that can be helpful to deal with that kind of subtle excitement without changing the object, And also same with if you are using the bread, you can, if you are focusing on the sensation of noodle, then again, you can even go more deeper and more smaller amount of the sensation itself, and smaller part of that sensation, and more smaller that become, then again your mind become more withdrawn, more inward. And so in that cases, you don't have to change the object of meditation when it is subtle. But of course, when it becomes, even with that meditation, it doesn't help. It becomes more dense, more intense, more gross. Then you have to change the meditations, something that make you less attractive, more discharged, and less attachments. And then once you then back, so that is where that is how you can bring mind inward and then try to tie it to the objects. So when your mind is excited with that kind of, under the influence of excitement, here it says your mind should not attend to inspiring or delightful object, for they cause mind to be distracted outwards. So, and then same case, if your excitement is too gross and too intense, and even after doing the meditation on impermanent and the nature of samsara and meaningless and essenceless of the samsaric experience or the object of the desire, so forth, then again, maybe you need to kind of take a break, rest. Sometime, whether it's either with laxity or excitement, sometimes just moving your body can help. Just moving a little bit and doing a little bit of kind of, moving your body a little bit, and that can help. Yeah, sometimes it helps. While on the cushions, just moving your body a little bit, your head and your hands, and that can be helpful. It helps with also dullness, when your mind feels very dull. Also, it helps with sometimes with the excitement. And sometimes even that doesn't help. Then maybe we need to get, as he says before, maybe go out and maybe, refresh yourself, with some breeze, and sometimes, maybe something bothering you, and your mind is unable to settle down, and that's why your mind is so distracted, unable to focus. Your mind is unable to focus and so distracted, so scattered, because something is bothering you, So then we need to take care of that, what is bothering you. Sometimes it might be frustration, sometimes it might be anger, sometimes it might be fear, sometimes it might be anxiety. Whatever that mind is making your mind not to relax and not to be focused. Your mind keep on going that because of one of those emotions. So then we need to deal with that emotions. Then trying to why am I having this worry, anxiety? Why am I frustrated? Why am I angry? Why am I, whatever that is, and then looking at that and trying to solve that problems. And once by solving that problem, by exploring and analyzing, and through that different meditation in contact with that different emotions, and then when that has kind of settled down, then your mind can settle down. Our mind is unable to settle down and focus and keep on running because something is bothering us. And sometimes, even when you try to do that, the something that is bothering us so intense, so strong, whatever, the fear, anxiety, the frustration, impatience, anger, whatever that might be. Sometimes we might just need to take walk in the nature. That can help your mind to be more calm, peaceful. You know, sometimes the nature has some effect in that way, temporarily, to kind of, when you are in nature, you know, when you are in nature, or when you are walking, when you are in open spaces, you know, it just has that kind of some kind of influence your mind to be more kind of quiet, more calming, more peaceful, and then resting and relaxing. You know, same thing as we mentioned with the laxity. Also, same thing we need to apply here. Same thing when things are so bad, then that is important. Instead of pushing again, oh, I must focus. My mind is not focusing, and my mind must be focusing. You know, sometimes we become very stubborn. You know, very stubborn in our practice, and push ourselves too much, and then again that lead to lung. You know, imbalance in your, that can lead. So then that become more and more frustrations, you know. Maybe before you are frustrated with something that is bothering you. Now there's one which is affecting you now because you are frustrated with your job or with something. You have some kind of conflict, argument with someone today, and that is bothering you, or certain situation in your life that you are frustrated with or impatient with, that's bothering you. So that your mind is kind of being not calm, peaceful, and that is making you to be distracted. And sometimes it's so bad when we need to rest, we don't rest, and you are unable to focus, and you feel, oh, I need to focus. I need to focus. And you keep on doing that, then you become more and more frustrated. Your practice becomes cause of frustrations now. Your meditation, your practice become frustrations, cause of frustrations. Now on top of one frustration, you are adding more and more frustrations. It doesn't help. The mind, as I always say, our mind should be treated like we treat a small baby. Kindness, gentleness. You know, you can't be too harsh. You know, your mind is, our mind should be treated just like that. You know, the way we treat our children. You know, sometimes we have to be very kind, gentle. You know, and that is how what we also, otherwise, you know, it makes things worse. You know, when you try to push too much. And then next time, because we push so much, and then, you know, we get so frustrated, and we become too, you know, and all of that have a negative, very negative experience, imprint in our mind. And next time we don't want to practice. We don't want to meditate. It's not inspiring. It becomes discouraged. And so that is where the importance of being skillful and gentle, key to our practice, especially shamatha and all our practice meditation, is always that kind of the need for the balance, the middle way. When we need to push, we need to push. When we need to take a break, relax, we know how to take a break and relax. That is the key. That is the key for the success, you know. not pushing too much when we need when it is not required, you know. But sometimes we become lazy and we need to push a little bit, you know. Otherwise, we become too lazy. But sometimes it's not laziness. We try to push too much, and then again it leads to we break down, and then we need to take relax. So that is the balancing. That is the key. And again, all these teachings always come to that balance. The middle way, the balance is the key for enjoying our practice. Key for having a more success in our meditations. That is the key. So, so then identifying the cause, you know, the cause of common cause of leg-sitting excitements. So here the common cause for leg-sitting excitements, here it says not guarding one's sense door. That's one, you know. So not guarding our, like, you know, just allowing ourselves to follow whatever object we see, whatever object we hear, whatever object we smell, whatever object we taste, you know. We should have some kind of, if you see something that is disturbing your mind, we should try to guard that from looking at that, you know. Of course, if someone has the antidotes that they can apply, then that is not a problem. For a beginner who doesn't have that, then you see something and it disturbs your mind, make your mind very upset and angry and all of that. If it leads to that, then it's better to guard our mind from seeing so much. So that is like, for example, watching news, if you disturb your mind very badly, you know, and if you don't have tool to deal with that. Or sometimes you see things that make your mind, you know, because too much attachment. You see that object, too much attachment, your mind is become too excited. It leads to too much attachment. Again, we need to guard. And same thing, you know, if you hear all the bad news all the time, it is disturbing your mind. There are some lamas, you know, who says, you know, when someone comes and try to say, oh, this person have this and this and that, sometimes you like to, you know, sometimes you like to kind of gossips, you know, oh, this happened. And some lama, when anyone, their friend or student comes, they say, please go away. Please go away. So anyone who go and talk to them, they cannot talk anything bad about anyone else, gossips and nothing. That is kind of guarding, you know. You start hearing that person does this and that 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, then your mind started to believe and start to become negative. Even maybe there is nothing truth in that. First you think, oh, it's not possible. And then you hear 1 time, 2 times from another person, oh, maybe there's something, because 2 persons said that. And then you hear from another person, 5, 6, it must be, I think it must be, because it's not 1 person, it's 10 persons who said that. And you can believe on the basis of that. And this is how our mind works. And so guarding your sense doors is what you see, what you hear, what you smell, this is important to have more peaceful mind, more calm mind, and you know, less attachment, less anger, less distractions, and also it helps us to feel more compassion, easy for others when we have that kind of more balanced, calm mind. Not eating the right amount, you know, right amount or right food, you know. Right food is like some food that make your mind too excited. Some food your mind makes too heavy, unclear, you know. So again, for a real, for a good, especially when you are doing shamatha, also the food can have an effect. Some food has this kind of effect that make your mind kind of more dull, you know, more sleepy. Have you noticed? Like I do notice, you know, like if you don't eat a lot, let's say garlic for a long time, if you eat the garlic, that make your mind kind of unclear and heavy and sleepy, you know. Yogurt seems to have similar also effect. Once you have that, you feel a little bit kind of sleepy. I don't know whether that's the case for everyone, but definitely I've noticed some of the food like that, you know. And also I've heard a lot of people who have stopped eating meat for a long time, and they say they feel their body very heavy, you know, and then that makes your body heavy and your mind heavy. Not happy, heavy, okay? And not light, heavy. And so that affects your mind as well, you know, kind of dull, sleepy, unfresh, you know. So what kind of food and amount of the food? If you eat too much, then you become heavy, you know. Then you want to sleep. You don't want to meditate. I want to sleep. I want to take a nap. I want to just lay down there because you feel too heavy, you know. If you eat too little, then when you are meditating, you start to get hungry and your mind get distracted, you know. Your mind get distracted because your body is feeling hungry. And that is why right amount of food is important, where it doesn't become so that it doesn't become too hungry before you finish your meditation sessions. Okay, so that you don't have to think about that, distracted because of your hungerness. Also, that is, you don't eat too much where it becomes too heavy, that your mind is not clear. So right amount of food. And also that is one reason also why Buddha advised not to have food in the evenings, for that, also for the meditations, for that, you know. Not putting effort into one practice without sleeping during the first and last part of the midnight. So of course, when you are meditating, you are not putting effort, you know, while you are trying to practice meditate, but not really putting effort, you know, being too lazy. So you have to put some effort, you know. But of course, like the sleepy part, you know, normally, you know, I think as long as we have, you know, so that is basically not being too lazy that we oversleep so much, you know, and lose so much meditation time. Trying to have enough for our body to be healthy, you know. And remaining without vigilance. And even when you are trying to meditate, you know, but your mind is not vigilant enough, so then it is and vigilant all the time when you are meditating and practice. If you are not alert and vigilant, then even we fall in one of those obstacles, laxity and excitement, we will not be aware of it. And so that will be another obstacles, and that give rise to the laxity and excitement. So that those are the common cause of laxity and excitement. So I think maybe today I'm going to stop here. Okay. And especially about the food, you know, you can experiment yourself and find out yourself, you know. Meat is hard for me to recognize now because I haven't eaten so long time. And garlic and onions and those, because I eat every time, all the time, it's hard to notice difference. But there are times like when I did retreat, you know, for certain periods, and you don't eat those black food, then then after you have not eaten for certain period, a week or two or month, And when you start eating it, even a little bit, you can see the difference, the effect that it has. And also, yeah, also for me, I also see with the yogurt as well. And some of the Tibetan, they eat a yogurt before they go to bed because it helps them to sleep, kind of sleep in. And I don't know whether that is the same to everyone, but definitely. So there are certain food, which we can see the effect of that in terms of our mind, to be more clear or unclear, and feeling more light or heavy, all of that. And on the basis of that, especially when you're trying to develop shamatha, then I think it is important. Maybe even we can't do that every day, but when you are trying to develop shamatha, to kind of pay more attention to those would be important. Okay, then we'll do the dedications. Yawadi nyodo da lama sangye do gyone dowa chi jama luba te sala kwe ba sho chanjo senjo rinpo che ma ke pa na ke gyo che ke wa nyamba me ba yang kong le kong du ke wa sho. The wish granting, wish fulfilling, true source of every single benefit that happen in this world, to the incomparable content and just I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneous and fulfilled. To Zhang Xin Zhang Guan Jiao Wei Ten Jin Zhang Bei Wei Gun So To Ho Zi Xiao Song Ku Wei Lei Mong Tu Du Ba La So Du Jie Guan Du Sha Pen Xiao. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.